All right, we are live. It is a little bit after 5 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. I'm going to give just a moment for folks to hop on. Hey, there we go. We are live. It is Thursday afternoon, a little bit after 5 o'clock. Just giving folks an opportunity to log on. And good to see you guys today. Hey, thanks so much for kind of tuning in to our thoughts last week. I really enjoyed making last week's video and was very thankful for the response. That really was, that 15, 17-minute video really simply was the talk that I would give local churches when I was invited as a state missionary working in Collegiate Reaching for my state convention. I'd go into churches and just share about all the great things we were doing, we were getting to do on that church's behalf through BCM on our local college campuses. Been a long time since I've given that talk, and just wanted to kind of put it out there. A definition that's really near and dear to my heart about what we've done historically for, oh my goodness, 100 years now through BCM. Last weekend, I wrote out the outline for this video and for the one I think I might do next Thursday. Really, these videos are just questions and thoughts that I've had and I've shared for years. So once again, just kind of working off the script. So if I'm looking down and looking up, that's what I'm doing. I really appreciate your interactions on the last video. I had a lot of shares, had a lot of questions. I got to have some great phone calls, I think because of it, with so many of you. And I just want to thank you for that. And one of the questions I got was, so who are you, right? That's a great question. That's a fair question, jumping on here and talking about BCM when I'm not in that world right now. So just kind of here's who I am and what I did. I hope this doesn't come off as me trying to brag or anything, just so you'll know my perspective and my background. And hopefully that'll give you a little bit more confidence in the video. I studied collegiate ministry at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth with Dr. Phil Briggs. At the same time, I was working on getting certified as a North American Mission Board church planner through the Nehemiah Project with David Wheeler. I really thought at the time God was calling me and my wife to go into something called collegiate church planting. God had a very different path for us, and it's been a great journey. That was, oh gracious, 20 years ago, and just so many memories of what we've done since. But all that background work simply means that I had a chance to do some really cool things. I got to do preliminary field research for 2 collegiate church plants in Illinois and Wisconsin. And since then, I've been a student, a volunteer, a part-time and a full-time campus minister through Baptist Collegiate Ministries, through BCM. I've worked on campuses that include a 2-year junior college, a regional university, flagship research university, and even a state medical school. So through the years, I've had an opportunity to work on a variety of campuses with a whole just host of different kinds of students in different settings, and it's been a lot of fun. All that work has been in 3 states, all in the southeastern U.S., and for the past 6 years, I've been pastoring a church right here in southwest Georgia. But we've never stopped working and learning and celebrating how God is moving on college campuses. I've been a part of a few Hitchhiker's Guides, learning about collegiate reaching methods on the West Coast and in the Midwest of our country. So who is this guy? I'm not an expert, not by a long shot, not claiming to be, not even pretending to be, but God's allowed me to be in the room and to learn from a lot of experts along the way. So that's kind of why I'm speaking and where I'm speaking from. And as BCM turns 100 years old, and as we've seen changes and how different states have chosen to use that ministry, I thought a few quick videos might be a way of saying thank you to all of my heroes who have worked so hard to be salt and light on university campuses. So in the last video, I gave my definition, my working definition of BCM. What is it? BCM is the cooperative on-campus collegiate reaching effort of Southern Baptist. In the last video, I unpacked each of those and explained how we functionally do that through BCM. Now, what some of you guys said I should have said, and you're right, is I should have said historic. That BCM is the historic way that Southern Baptists have done those things. Or I should have said that it's one of. So in this video, Certainly, BCM's not the only way Baptists reach college students, not by a long shot. So in this video, I wanted to just do a quick rundown of what Baptists and more widely what evangelicals in other parts of North America are doing to reach the campus with the gospel. So here's a list. They're not ranked. I'm not going to give commentary on them. I'm not going to compare them. I'm not going to put them in juxtaposition to BCM. At least I'm going to try really hard not to. Number one is church-based collegiate ministries. Church-based collegiate ministries. What is that? It's what it sounds like it is. Churches that are close to college campuses start ministries to reach college students. And I think every church should have one of these because we've got college students in all of our churches, even more so now than before. You don't have to be in a college town to have college students. Since COVID and because of COVID, a lot of our kids have switched to being online. A lot more of our kids are staying home and doing college through this medium, right? Through the internet, through video. So I love these. I celebrate these. They tend not to be RSOs. We talked about that in the first video. They're not recognized student organizations by and large. They're usually centered on the church campus and not the college campus. Big distinction between that, BCM, and some other models. They tend to be strongest, though, in traditional college towns. And by that, I mean places that have a lot of residential college students and a strong blended college and community identity. So if you go to Gainesville, Florida, there's a lot of orange and blue all over town. You really can't tell where the college begins and the town ends and vice versa. That's a traditional college town. A lot of those churches are going to have really dynamic church-based college ministries. All right, number two, let's talk about collegiate church planting. I mentioned it at the top of the video. What is it? It's just that. It's people that go in and start churches on college campuses or near college campuses that are focused wholly on the university community, specifically college students. They really are church plants for college students. Now, there are a couple of different ways of doing that. In the Southeast, I think what we've seen more of than anything is an entrepreneurial style. That's kind of how we do church planting. In our denomination in the Southeast, an individual church planter feels called by God to start a new church where there's not a work, and they get certified, they go through our processes, they get allies and supporters, they raise funds, and they just go do it, and they do it on their own. Huge fan of our church planting efforts here in Georgia and across the North America. So celebrate that. I've been a part of your tribe, guys. I'm for you. I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I might talk about that later. I would love to talk about some church planting and some of our efforts there in the future. But these collegiate church plants, while we in the South, I think, have seen a lot of entrepreneurs outside of the Southeast, we've seen a lot of collegiate church planting networks. Very focused, very targeted collectives of churches with a system of recruiting and discipling and training and sending and funding other collegiate church plants. And I'm really excited by some of the models that I've gotten to study, some of the collegiate church plants I've gotten to study. What comes to mind are guys like Keith Weezer at Resonate in Washington, Ed Kang at Grace Point out in Berkeley, Troy Nesbitt at Salt Company in Ames, Iowa. I've had the opportunity to hang out with some of those guys and be in classroom settings with some of those guys, be on their campuses, learning from them. They do a phenomenal job of making disciples, raising up leaders, and multiplying their particular model of collegiate church plants on other campuses. It's remarkable how God is using them right now. It's really exciting to see. There are others as well. I know H2O and Aletheia. There are other great networks, guys, out there. Those are the ones I'm a little bit more familiar with. And I tend to get more excited about the networks than the entrepreneurs because of the level of accountability and because of the level of reproducibility, multiplication that we see in those networks and through those networks. All right, number three are parachurch ministries. So let's talk about that. Parachurch ministries are groups like Cru, what used to be Campus Crusade for Christ, groups like InterVarsity and the Navigators. And really a fan of those guys. I celebrate what they do. A lot of our churches, even our Baptist churches, elect to do collegiate reaching by supporting those parachurch organizations and missionaries attached to those parachurch organizations. A little bit different than our denominational model because they aren't affiliated with a church or group of churches. They really have their own set of values, their own set of beliefs, their own set of rules, their matrix for measuring success. But they do a great job of being on campus, being recognized student organizations, reaching students with the gospel. And I know when I was on a campus, I really celebrated those other groups because, man, a campus is big and we're all not going to reach all the students. We need each other there. So just love the work that they do. I know my church, for example, supports a crew missionary who's working overseas. Happy to be supportive of the work that they're doing. Number 4, and it really is a shout out to other denominational collegiate reaching efforts. You know, we're not the only game in town. You know, Wesleyan is out there doing a great job working with the UMC, RUF working with PCA, BCM is our version of that, and others. And I really want to mention them because I want to draw a line and a distinction. You know, it's not right to call those groups, not proper to call those groups parachurch organizations because they're not. They don't stand on their own. They don't stand apart. They really are their churches, their denominations representative on the college campus. So again, got some great friends and partners in ministry who are in those groups. We've got students from my church who are in some of those other groups. Just excited about what they're doing for Jesus on the college campus. And then let's maybe change the conversation a little bit. As we look around the Southeast and what BCM has been historically, and as we see some state conventions moving away from a traditional BCM model, new models are emerging. For example, if we look to North Carolina, that really got rid of BCM kind of altogether a few years ago, we see a brand new model. They call it No Campus Left Behind, really focused on trying to get churches more engaged in creating off-campus or on-campus collegiate ministries. So maybe moving away from a BCM model, moving towards more of a church-based model, but trying to reach college students that way. We see what I would call a strategic model. That's where maybe defunding has happened in some state conventions, and they've gotten rid of all the little regional college BCMs, and they really are focusing on a handful of colleges strategically, and that's great. I love it when we think strategically, but it tends to be the larger research or flagship universities within a state, right? So it tends to be the colleges with a football team that you're going to watch on a Saturday. And some states, simply because of budgetary reasons, have had to move towards that model. Some states have more of a regional model where maybe they don't have a BCM missionary reaching a college campus, but they might have a strategist in a region trying to work with churches and other groups to see that there's a presence on college campuses. So you might have one person in a region responsible for a dozen or more college campuses. We see that some of our state conventions have moved to that model as well. Some of our state conventions really do rely on those really healthy collegiate church planning models. They rely on them, they support them, they celebrate them, and that is the state's collegiate reaching effort, just kind of getting behind those systems that are working away from the state denomination, the state group of churches, and supporting them and celebrating them. Or some hybrid combination of those. We see some states moving towards a hybrid combination where they're doing a bunch of different things, trying to reach college students. And while I love the traditional BCM model, I'm not antagonistic towards any of these. Our individual states need to work and work out the priority that they're going to place on reaching college students, and then develop a strategic plan that churches will get behind, support, and really most importantly, fund, right? It really comes down to a state saying, this is how we're going to do it. This is where it ranks for us in a level of importance. And then getting that word out to guys like me, to people like you, so that we can, support that. Because understand this, that's the number one objection to BCM I've heard through my entire career with a bullet. I've heard multiple folks who work for state conventions really all over the Southeast say, Chad, look, BCM is like the most expensive thing that we do. And I've heard some guys say that kind of almost bragging, right? Like, hey man, this is the number one thing we do. We put more money into that than anything. And some guys have said that, and it's been, just almost, almost like we're afraid that people are going to find that out and will have to defund what we're doing to reach college students. And I get that. I get that objection. I know it's an expensive model and an expensive ministry, the same way that our International Mission Board is a really expensive ministry. We don't expect our missionaries to go raise their own funds, and we expect to have IMB missionaries all over the globe in places wherever the gospel isn't. So too, historically, BCM, our state conventions, have said it's expensive, but we're going to have presence on all of these different college campuses and put trained missiologists in charge of that, and put trained missionaries on those campuses to work with students, to reach students, and to help mobilize students to take the gospel to their peers. So, that's an objection to the BCM model. There are lots of them I've heard through the years. I've got a laundry list of them here in front of me. And this is not new to any of you guys. I mean, I've probably had these conversations with some of you guys. It's too expensive. To that I say, it is. So maybe we need to think about that. We certainly need to have that conversation. Certainly something that we do is going to be the most expensive thing that we do. And my prayer, I know for my state convention, for your state convention, is that choice is going to be made strategically, and it's going to have the affirmation and acclamation of all the churches as they do. One thing I hear a lot is the model is too old. I get that a bunch. We turn 100 years. BCM turns 100 years old this year. And I get that a lot of companies don't make it to the century mark. I get it that Sears and Roebuck isn't a thing anymore. I understand that we don't call the Sears Tower the Sears Tower, that when things get old, they seem to plateau and decline and fade away for something new. That's the way of things. That's the way things work even within the church. And I respect that. I get that. And to that, I guess I would ask my friends who are doing BCM model, right? To really lean into that kind of banner of the Protestant Reformation, that we're always reforming, semper reformanda. We're always looking for new and innovative ways to reach. And I think it might be a little bit unfair to say BCM is an old model, because as we look at BCM today versus BCM in the 50s versus BCM back in the 20s, radically different strategy, radically different focus, radically different set of priorities. We've always had that presence, and we've always had some of those things that are true. I dealt with that in the last video. But boy, I'm so proud of the discipleship and evangelism focus on most of our BCMs. And I love how adaptive they are to their local context. It's too expensive, it's too old. I hear from some folks that it's too rigid. BCM is too rigid of a model, and different campuses need different things. And look, if that's the model we've been doing, I completely agree. I think BCM's at its best. We're at our best as pastors, as collegiate reachers, whoever, when we do the work of a missionary. And what a missionary does before anything else is they walk into that cross-cultural situation, and they exegete the community. How can we best communicate Jesus into this local context, into this local community? And the truth is, there's a lot of differences between a lot of our colleges. UGA and Georgia Tech have different cultures. They're different schools. And those big research institutions are way different than our smaller regional colleges. And our regional colleges are different than our JUCOs and different than our technical schools. So a good BCM guy, a good BCM gal is going to be a missionary first. They're going to exegete that college community and learn how to adapt the model to the setting. And the great thing is, I know the people that I've worked with in the past really were great at that. I can remember walking into my first BCM campus ministers meeting, and I walked in and I was blown away by how different everyone was, right? I looked around and went, how did a group of people, how did one organization hire all of these different personality types? And then I realized, oh my goodness, that means I'm an addition to this collection of different personalities too. And it's because they really did try to put the right missionary on the right campus to reach it with the gospel. And that was just exciting to see and exciting to be a part of. So you guys keep exegeting your communities, be good missionaries, keep doing the work. Proud of you and love you guys. I hear sometimes a complaint, we don't need to be in the real estate business. That has to do with our BCM centers, which certainly are aging. They're getting older. Certainly there's a constant need for maintenance and upkeep and repair. And while that's true, I think to an extent that we need to be about things other than building maintenance. Certainly, I look at like our flagship programs, the campus center, the university student center that we have at Georgia on South Lumpkin and Techwood Drive for Georgia Tech. And the truth is, guys, those pieces of property will never come up for sale again. So I just say praise God for the associations of churches, the local pastors, and the state convention that had the vision decades and decades and decades ago to snatch that up and to plant a flag, and to say we're going to have a place for students to be and to go. Certainly those BCMs with student centers have an opportunity to be very healthy programs on their campus because there's a physical place that we can point students to. However, not every BCM has a building. The BCMs that I worked with universally throughout my collegiate reaching career, through that part of my ministry, we didn't have buildings. We were entirely on campus. The BCM center was packed up in the trunk of my car, and I had to, put it in boxes and bring it onto campus every single week, every time we had a meeting. So the model really is, I think, more elastic than some of my brother pastors realize. So you guys who are out there without student centers, man, you guys, I know where you're at, I know where you're coming from. Keep up the good work. One of the objections we hear, and this is an interesting one. I was very tempted not to say this. This is an older objection I've heard in years past, but I do want to give voice to it because I don't know. I'm talking to my brother pastors here. Maybe this is you. Maybe you've heard this. Here's the objection: that old BCM guys are disconnected from the conservative resurgence. Now, this is an in-house Southern Baptist kind of objection. So if you're outside of that group, you might not know what I'm talking about. But there was maybe a stigma at one point, and maybe in some places and not others, that the BCM was the last holdout of guys that weren't going along with the conservative resurgence. And look, I'm a younger pastor. Certainly was a younger BCM campus minister when I was doing that, 6-7 years ago. But the truth is, guys, the BCM guys in my region, the guys that I'm working with, the guys that I know, I have them in to preach for me regularly, because you will not find a group of people who love the Bible more, who believe the Bible more. I've yet to run into the BCM guy that did not represent who we are and what we believe as Baptists well. Now, I don't know, in other places that might have been an objection, at another time that might have been an objection. I just tell you, man, I've been in the world and I just haven't seen a lot of validity to that objection. Last objection I want to deal with is that BCM is disconnected from churches. And I want to get really personal with you guys, because I was one, right? I was a state missionary with the state convention, working with BCM in a local church. And I can remember there were some pastors that I loved working with. Man, they loved college students, and they just wanted to pour into them, invest in them. One of my happiest moments is when one of my BCM couples, right, the kids who meet in college through BCM, were heading towards graduation. They got engaged, they were getting married, and they didn't invite me to do the wedding. They invited a local pastor who was a regular volunteer at their BCM to officiate their wedding. That meant that we were able to connect them to a local church together, to a pastor in a local church in just a meaningful way. That was a great experience. Also some bad experiences. I can remember there was some one pastor in particular that we just didn't get along, right? And that bothered me, because while our personalities were in conflict and we weren't buddies, we didn't get along, we really had a hard time connecting and communicating, that pastor was passionate about college students and wanted to reach that campus with the gospel. So I had to get over myself and find people in his congregation who could work with me and with our group. And some of the proudest moments were seeing that church connect meaningfully with students and seeing students connect with that pastor. And I get it. Like, we've got men and women working in churches and men and women working on college campuses, and sometimes they can feel disconnected from one another. And yet, when we're at our best, we're finding ways to work around all of that, because, get this, we're on the same team, right? The pastor who wants to reach college students, and the BCM guys on campus reaching college students, on the same team, working with the same end goal in mind. So whatever disconnection there might be, boy, we've got to work better at that. So BCM guys, listen to me, man. If your pastors are saying that they're disconnected from you, we've got to work hard at that. That's a huge part of reaching college students, is making sure that we really do represent our churches well, and we really do connect meaningfully with our churches. And the great thing is, what I've witnessed, what I've seen, what I've known working in 3 states and all those different settings, is that we've got BCM campus ministers who really do a great job of making sure that it is an associational ministry. It really is the ministry of all of their local churches and the ministry of all the churches in their state. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I was told also last week I went way too long, so I need to cut it short a little bit. I don't think I have done that. I think I've gone longer. Again, Southern Baptist pastor, it's a occupational hazard. But I hope this has been good content for you guys. Please comment below. Next week, if you're interested, I might be logging back on at 5 on Thursday to wrap this series up. To talk about collegiate reaching, some trends in collegiate reaching, some things that concern me as a pastor, some things that I'm super encouraged about. Again, just wanted to just share a little bit, get this out on the internet. It's been such a huge part of my journey. It's been a huge part of so many people's journey. I just wanted to give voice to it. So guys, God bless. Thanks for being with me tonight. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.